Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. So, it is about to be July, and I know that Jane Austen July is a thing. I'm not participating in Jane Austen July. I don't reread, as you know. I need to give myself a little bit of pressure-free reading this month. I do, however, have some Jane Austen July recommendations that are set in England and are, let's say, they're set in the same time frame as Jane Austen's novels and life. So I thought they would put a slightly different spin on things. And the first one is possible that I will read in July. That is Jane and the Unpleasantness at Scargrave Manor by Stephanie Barron. This is a very long-running series. This one was published in 1996. There are, I want to say, 13 plus. They are cozy mysteries. Jane Austen is the protagonist in the mysteries. And I tried to read this one eons and ages ago. I set it aside. I picked it back up when I decided to do this video. And I read the first chapter or two, and I was enjoying myself. So that is a sign to me that I should continue. So I'm going to. Next up is the debut novel by Susanna Clarke. That is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. This is historical fantasy. It is set in 1807, I believe. Let's see. Yep. Opening chapters, autumn 1806 to January 1807. It's chunker. I haven't read it. I keep wanting to read it, but that one is a definite no for me right now. It's too thick. My brain is going to tell me no, and it will get me back into my reading slump, and that cannot happen. So the next is trilogy, and the trilogy, as you all know, I don't read horror books. They don't interest me. However, I watched the movie for this trilogy, and the movie is fantastic. I thought it would be horrible and cheesy and campy, and it was anything but. I loved the movie, and that is Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. So, Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies is the first book, and it's by Jane Austen and Seth Grahame-Smith. The second one is Dreadfully Ever After by Stephen Hockensmith. And the third book is Dawn of the Dreadfuls by Stephen Hockensmith. And yeah, the cover art is creepy and, you know, not something you would normally gravitate towards. But I'm trying to find one of the illustrations here. The books are somewhat illustrated. There you go. They are. You can understand and Jane Austen's prose versus, especially in this one, she's the only one that she's authored by, and where the co-author has taken some liberties with the story. It's not a jarring juxtaposition or a break in storytelling, but if you've read Jane, you can hear Jane's voice. And they're just a very lighthearted, fun, entertaining take on the world of Jane Austen. And if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend the movie. It is just a good romp through Pride and Prejudice with a completely different perspective, and yet it's still faithful. Editing Tammy, I just went to the library yesterday and I forgot I had picked up or requested several Jane Austen July adjacent books, so I'm inserting them into the video. The first one would be the Jane Austen Book Club by Karen Joy Fowler. Self-explanatory. I haven't read this one, but I want to read it. It's about a book club, and here, I'll read to the inside flap. In California's Central Valley, 5 women and 1 man join together to discuss Jane Austen's novels. Over the 6 months they meet, marriages are tested, affairs begin, unsuitable arrangements have become suitable, and love happens. So, I'm thinking adjacent to Sense and Sensibility. So, we shall see. Next up is the first in a cozy mystery series. I think I have read this. I am not sure. If I have, it will come to me if I start rereading it. And that is Pride and Prescience, a Mr. and Mrs. Darcy mystery by Carrie Bebris. I know there are, I want to say, 7 or 8 in the series. I only picked up the first one. I will read you the first 2 paragraphs of the flap. Mr. and Mrs. Darcy, the joyous newlyweds from Pride and Prejudice, have not even left for their honeymoon when they find themselves embroiled in a mystery involving one of their wedding guests. The lovely Caroline Bingley is engaged to marry a rich and charismatic American. Unfortunately, this whirlwind courtship is marred by many strange events. Nocturnal wanderings, spooked horses, carriage accidents, and even an apparent suicide attempt. Soon, the whole Bingley family seems the target of a mysterious plot. Yeah, I'm definitely going to read that. Next up is Masquerade at Middlecrest Abbey by Abigail Wilson. This is a romantic mystery set in the same time period as Jane. It is published by Thomas Nelson, so I'm hoping it's clean. And the back says, when the widowed Lord Tarrington agreed to spy for the crown, he never planned to impersonate a highwayman, let alone rob the wrong carriage. Stranded on the road with an unconscious young woman, he is forced to propose marriage to protect his identity and her reputation, as well as his dangerous mission. Trapped not only by her duty to her country, but also by her limited options as an unwed mother, Miss Elizabeth Cantrell and her infant son are whisked away to Middlecrest Abbey by none other than the elder brother of her son's absent father. There, she is met by Torrington's beautiful grown daughters, a vicious murderer, and an urgent hunt for the missing intelligence that could turn the war with France. Meanwhile, she must convince everyone that her marriage is a genuine love match if her new husband has any hopes of uncovering the enemy. Determined to keep her son's true identity a secret, Elizabeth will need to remain one step ahead of her fragile heart, her uncertain future, and the relentless fiend bent on her new family's ruin. Impulse pickup request. It sounds so intriguing. I can't wait. The author has 2 other books listed on the back of this one. It's not very long. It's 323. I'm very, very intrigued. Next up, and this I just realized, is Austenland number 1. Is Austenland by Shannon Hale. It is less than 200 pages, and I'll read you the blurb. Jane Hayes is a seemingly normal young New Yorker, but she has a secret. Her obsession with Mr. Darcy, as played by Colin Firth in the BBC adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, is ruining her life. No real man can compare. When a wealthy relative bequeaths her a trip to an English resort catering to Austen-crazed women, Jane's fantasies of meeting the perfect Regency-era gentleman suddenly become realer than she ever could have imagined. Decked out in empire waist gowns, stripped of her modern appliances, Jane throws herself into mastering Regency etiquette and flirts with gardeners and gentlemen, or maybe even, she suspects, with the actors who are playing them. It's all a game, Jane knows. And yet, the longer she stays, the more her insecurities seem to vanish. Is she about to kick the Austen obsession for good, or could all her dreams actually culminate with a Mr. Darcy of her own? I just think this sounds so incredibly charming, and it's so incredibly slim. This is an afternoon read on the back patio for me, so I actually pulled from my own inventory. I forgot earlier. I am definitely going to read that one. So, and the last edition from the library is a large print that is eligible by Curtis Sittenfeld. And by large print, they truly mean large print. I'll read you the back. This version of the Bennet family and Mr. Darcy is one that you haven't met before. Liz is a magazine writer in her late 30s who, like her yoga instructor older sister Jane, lives in New York City. When their father has a health scare, they return to their childhood home in Cincinnati to help, and discover that the sprawling Tudor that they grew up in is crumbling and the family is in disarray. Youngest sisters Kitty and Lydia are too busy with their CrossFit workouts and paleo diets to get jobs. Mary, the middle sister, is earning her third online master's degree and barely leaves her room, except for those mysterious Tuesday night outings she won't discuss. And Mrs. Bennet has only one thing on her mind: how to marry off her daughters, especially as Jane's 40th birthday fast approaches. Enter Chip Bingley, a handsome new-in-town doctor who recently appeared on the juggernaut reality TV dating show Eligible. At a 4th of July barbecue, Chip takes an immediate interest in Jane, but Chip's friend, neurosurgeon Fitzwilliam Darcy, reveals himself to Liz to be much less charming. And yet, first impressions can be deceiving. I think it has possibilities. I think it may be problematic. We will see. It's published by Random House, so we will see. I don't have the best luck with Random House romances. You never know. Worst that could happen is I can DNF it. So that is my last mention for Jane Austen July this year. If I read anything, it will be in a weekly wrap-up. And I hope you have found something that works for you. There are my offbeat recommendations for Jane Austen July. Hopefully you found some inspiration. Leave a comment down below if you have anything to share. Like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.